my name is Matt Gress, and I work for STARS Nashville. And I'm going to spend a few minutes with you today just talking about an issue that's so important to so many, and that's the issue of bullying. In today's presentation, I really want to gear this toward those of you who are on the autism spectrum and discuss specific issues that overlap into your world and affect you in all types of different ways. And so we're going to dive into it, and hopefully you gain something from this that you can take with you and that will help you in your day-to-day life. So what I'm going to do first is go ahead and share my screen. And of course, this is always fun, trying to get everything to work right. All right, great. And so, as I titled this, Understand, Prevent, and Respond to Bullying. So, learning how to recognize bullying, how to stay safe, and how to ask for help. And I know all three of those things are so important because just because we recognize what bullying is doesn't mean we're able to take action or we feel empowered to take action. So I hope by the time we're done today that you'll feel some empowerment, that you'll have some knowledge and maybe some ideas you didn't have before we started. And so, first of all, the simple question of what is bullying? And unfortunately, people call bullying a lot of things that it is not. And so we want to make sure we have a good working definition. So here's that official definition first. So bullying is intentional, aggressive behavior that involves an imbalance of power between a student who bullies and those that they target. So an imbalance of power can look like a lot of different things, right? It could be somebody that's bigger, but often it's just somebody that has more status, more social power, maybe more friends. Maybe they just have a more aggressive personality. And so that word power does not always equate to size. And so I want you to remember, though, there does need to be an imbalance of power. So, sometimes people, you guys will just be having an argument, or maybe you're with your friends and you're sort of making fun of each other in a good-hearted nature and that kind of thing. That can be a little different than what we're talking about when we're talking about bullying. So again, bullying is something that somebody has more power than another person, and then they intentionally harm somebody. They target somebody in order to make them feel a certain way. Maybe it's less than or what have you. And I'll show you different ways they can do that in a second. Of course, one thing is cyberbullying. And really, the definition of cyberbullying is the same as regular bullying, except that there's a willful and repeated harm inflicted through the use of, computers, cell phones, other electronic devices. One of the issues with cyberbullying is it's just so accessible, and that young people or adults or whoever, they can have a sense of anonymity behind it. So in other words, people can sometimes do things they maybe won't ordinarily do face to face because they feel like they're shielded. So cyberbullying kind of brings that other layer to it, where there's kind of a disconnection between two people in a day-to-day basis, maybe. Although cyberbullying can be a continuation of bullying that takes place at school as well. So again, bullying and cyberbullying are both the same thing when it comes down to it. It's somebody that has more power than another person, and they're using it to intentionally harm another person, to target somebody. The only difference is that cyberbullying takes place in some sort of electronic way. And like I've been saying, I just wanted to break it down to three key components. It involves aggressive behavior. So there's a behavior that is aggressive toward another person, and it's a pattern of behavior that's repeated over time, and there's that imbalance of power or strength. And the number two part here is really important because we really do need to look at it as a pattern of behavior rather than just, maybe one incident. Because sometimes somebody might just have a disagreement or they're having a bad day and they say something they shouldn't have said. But when we're talking about bullying, it typically involves a pattern of behavior. And that's why sometimes I know you might feel like, well, I don't want to report this because it's not a big thing. But it is a big thing to the person it's happening to often. And also, it's a big thing when it's added up over time. So it might be 50 little things that have occurred, but they continue to happen, and they're continually targeted toward one person or a group of people. So, if that is happening, we're talking about bullying behavior. And so this kind of breaks it down even further. There's physical bullying. We can see this, right? There's hitting, there's pushing, property destruction. Sometimes we neglect that last one. Just somebody like tossing something off of somebody's desk, or breaking something, or stealing something from somebody, or hiding things from somebody. So there's that physical bullying that takes place. Verbal bullying, of course, we know this, the name calling, the mocking, the threatening, all of those different things. And then social and relational bullying. This is the one that people oftentimes feel kind of unusual about reporting because they don't know how to put it into words sometimes. But it's when somebody is excluded on purpose. Now, this doesn't mean somebody's just not your friend and you're not friends with each other. That happens. But this is when somebody specifically excludes people or a person on purpose. Rumors, gossip, man, we all know the damage that rumors can have on people. And then, of course, intentional isolation. So here we're talking about somebody that a group of people or a person intentionally tries to isolate from, the general population there, maybe a classroom, from a group of people, from the lunchroom. This happens a lot in lunchrooms, and I can think of other places like recess or outdoor time, or in PE, things like that. So, times when we're supposed to be including people and having people be a part of an activity or whatever, and we're intentionally isolating somebody. And then finally, again, we have cyberbullying, which is those mean texts, social media harassment, fake accounts, group chat exclusion. Those last two I see a lot of these days, especially the fake accounts. I even have seen, and I'm sure somebody that is listening to this can attest to this, where somebody will create an account with your name and maybe pull a picture off of one of your public accounts and put it on there, and then also post things there. Or it could just be a fake account that friends you and you don't know who it is, and then they start doing things that really make you feel uncomfortable. All right, so those are four different ways that bullying takes place. When I was younger, we didn't have those, that last one. That cyberbullying piece really adds another layer to things. And often, I know when you talk with adults, they may not understand it because they'll say, well, I was bullied when I was a kid. And you know as well as I do that the bullying they had is different than a lot of the bullying that takes place in your life. And again, it's because of that access. Think about this. Years ago, if somebody did something or was bullying somebody at school, or I don't know, took a picture of somebody or whatever, that would be over once they left the school building, or that picture could be destroyed. But when we talk about your lives today, something could be posted on a social media account, and then somebody likes it a month later, and sure enough, it pops back up into the feed again. And so that's why cyberbullying is so important, to make sure we really take some steps. And I'll give you some real practical steps here in just a few minutes when we're talking about that, so that we can really stop that in its tracks so it doesn't keep repeating itself. And the same bullying that might have taken place months ago doesn't need to resurface again. So this is an important slide right here. I want to make sure that we look at this really quickly. And I'm going to take a quick drink before I get here. So I want to make sure we know the difference between conflict and bullying. So, when we're talking about conflict, there's equal power. There's that power thing again. When we're talking about bullying, we're talking about a power imbalance. When we're talking about conflict, that's occasional. Maybe two people just sometimes don't get along, or they have a disagreement. Bullying, it's repeated, and it happens over and over again. And no matter how small, those little small things add up when it's just continually coming at somebody. And I know any of you that have had bullying take place, against you, you know what I'm talking about. Can feel very isolating and feel very just, it can cause you to feel really downtrodden, to feel really de-escalated, or deflated, I should say. In conflict, both of you are contributing. You're both kind of just back and forth at each other. Bullying, one targets another person. That's important. In conflict, there's a disagreement. In bullying, there is an intent to harm. Now, I do want to make it clear that sometimes there are bullying behaviors that take place, without maybe intention, but there was, bullying that took place. I'm sorry, my screen just went weird there for a second. And so we want to make sure that we remember that there's an intent to harm, but that there can be behaviors that are bullying behaviors in and of themselves, and they should still be taken care of. But they're taken care of in a way that's a little different than somebody's intentionally harming somebody. So, maybe somebody didn't realize calling somebody by a particular nickname was bullying them. But if we bring it to their attention and they apologize and we realize, I was making a mistake, we can still identify that as a bullying behavior, but it's not the pattern of bullying. So we can see there that's important for you all to hear too, because we want to just make sure that we understand what bullying exactly is and what conflict is. And sometimes people do things out of ignorance without realizing it. That's not an excuse. It's a different way that we look at things. So again, really quickly, bullying is not a disagreement. It's not someone accidentally hurting your feelings. And it's not just a misunderstanding. I don't know some of you, I mean, I work with kids every single day. By trade, I'm a counselor that does mental health work with kids, and especially my middle school kids and my elementary school kids. I know some of you, you find yourselves sometimes just really getting your feelings hurt. Older kids too, but I see it a lot with my middle school kids. And sometimes kids I work with just don't understand what's going on, and we have to really process through that. And so, a good thing for you to do if you feel like somebody really just hurt my feelings is to talk to a trusted adult, like a counselor or something, because maybe you can process through it and realize, maybe this is more of a disagreement rather than bullying, and maybe you can talk it out. Now, if it's bullying, we don't put you together and try to figure that out because we consider that kind of an abusive situation. But it might be good when you do get your feelings hurt and you feel like, gosh, that didn't feel good to me, that you go maybe process it with somebody you trust. And that way you can kind of differentiate, oh, you know what? I never thought of it that way. So again, it's important that we realize what bullying is and what bullying is not. They did some surveys with young people on the spectrum, the autism spectrum, and some of the kids said they felt like they were targeted because they have different interests. Maybe you feel like you have different interests than, other kids in your class. Maybe you speak a little differently. You have some different speech patterns. Maybe you need routines. Um, Gosh, and I see this all the time. Kids that really need to stay on routine and really get knocked off. They're kind of off kilter a little bit when things like a schedule changes or a new teacher comes in or there are substitutes. And it's hard. It's hard sometimes because it's hard to help other people understand. You're not just maybe getting agitated or set off because you just randomly are. It's because a routine was something you got used to and now it's been knocked off. Other kids on the autism spectrum said they have sensory needs. Sometimes maybe you need a stress ball or that little fidget thing, or you tap a little bit, or I work with some kids that make some noises sometimes. There's all different little things that we have, and all those things are fine. They're part of who you are. They're coping things that you have learned so that you can be in school and do your best and really concentrate when you need to. Sometimes, kids have said other kids don't understand this, and so they make fun of it, or they make comments, or they imitate you, or what have you. And that's not okay. And then the other thing is, so many times young people are so trusting. They trust people really easily. And I know those of you who are on the spectrum and those of you who have that tender heart that really trust people very easily and want to make friends, that's a great thing. It's a wonderful thing. But I know sometimes it can also open you up to the possibility of somebody taking advantage of that. That doesn't mean we don't stop trusting people. We don't stop trusting people because of that risk. But it is something that kids have identified as a reason they feel they're targeted sometimes. But I want you to remember, and this one, I want you to, man, take a picture of this slide if you're watching this on your, tablet or phone or laptop. The problem is the behavior of the one who is bullying, not you. You are who you are. And you may be unique in some ways. You might be exactly the same as everyone else in your room in some ways, but the problem is not you. The problem is with the person who is doing the bullying. And so I want you to hear that one more time. I'm going to just read it one more time. It's so important to me for you to hear this. The problem is the behavior of the one who is bullying, not you. There are some signs that maybe you are being bullied. Sometimes I've worked with some kids that don't realize they're being bullied because it's just kind of, it's going on in their everyday life and they just kind of get used to it. But I want you to ask yourself and think about some of your relationships you have right now with other kids your age. Do they keep doing something that doesn't feel okay? Do they laugh at you? Not with you, at you. Do you feel scared sometimes with them? Do you avoid them because you know something's coming? Do they want other people watching? That's a big one too. And this is the cyberbullying thing too, really ramps this up a lot. Where people start liking the post or what have you, and you feel like everybody's watching you. And that's not okay. And or they share a post. But in-person bullying is the same. We don't want kids to be calling other people over or a crowd gathering around. So if you have some people around you that are doing things that you know are intentionally irritating or bothering you, or trying to harm you in some way or make fun of you in some way, and they want other people watching it, we know that's bullying. And then finally, do you feel bad? This is one of those gut checks here. Do you just feel bad after being around them? So if there is a person or people that every time you're around them, you just kind of walk around afterwards feeling bad about yourself or feeling less than you did, less good, less well than you did before you were with them. If you answered any of those, in particular, if you answered multiple of those, yes, there's a good chance there's bullying happening. At the very least, it's a toxic relationship that we need to deal with too. But chances are great that there's some bullying going on. So really do take a minute after you watch this presentation today and think of some of your own relationships so you can differentiate between people that are being your friends and maybe doing that kind of fun joking around with each other. And people will make up names for each other and it's all good, it's all fun, and nobody's trying to make you feel bad, and you do it also, and you laugh together and you feel great when you leave them. That's a great relationship. But that's a good friendship. That's different than what we're talking about here, which is a toxic relationship, a bullying relationship. Again, so ask yourself the questions that are on the screen there. And if those things are happening and you don't feel comfortable maybe confronting it on your own, go talk to an adult that you trust. There are lots of feelings that are caused by bullying. It can make you sad. It can make you angry. It can make you afraid. It can make you lonely, confused, embarrassed. I should say you can feel these things because of bullying. Because we know nothing makes you feel something, but we do know that that's the counselor in me trying to correct my own language there. But people can do things that definitely trigger these feelings in you. And the angry one is a really important one because I know some of you might struggle with sometimes just blowing up and not knowing why sometimes. Or you blow up about something that somebody else might think is really small. And you know what? We don't need to overlook that. And you don't need to be ashamed of that. We just need to talk about it sometimes. Because sometimes sadness or fear comes out as anger because you don't know what else to do with that emotion. And unfortunately, some of you also might know because of past history or whatever, sometimes that'll get you in trouble. And so you end up getting in trouble, even though it was somebody else that really triggered the whole event. So before we get there, I want you to remember your feelings are your feelings. It's what we do with our feelings that are important. And what is important is that when you feel a feeling coming on that's too strong, like anger or a lot of sadness that you can't get rid of, or that really overwhelming feeling of loneliness, that you talk to somebody about it. Because remember, all feelings are okay. I'm going to say it again. All feelings are okay. What matters is what you do with them. And unfortunately, if we let our feelings get out of control to the point where they're controlling us, that's when we don't make the best decisions all the time. But I did want you to hear that your feelings are valid. Don't let somebody diminish your feelings too, or dismiss your feelings. In fact, if you go to get help because of something that's been happening over and over again, and it's kind of dismissed, or you really feel like they didn't hear you, go talk to somebody else. Sometimes we do. Unfortunately, adults don't always hear. They might be listening, but they don't always hear what you're saying, or maybe they don't grasp the gravity or the importance of what you're saying. And so just remember, if you don't get the help you need, go talk to somebody else. In the moment, I want you to stay calm. Take a breath when you can. It's so important, that breathing. I know you've probably learned some of those techniques. Walk away if possible. At least take a step backwards and then go toward adults or other students. One of the dangerous things is when you're one on one by yourself. That's where you really feel a lot of fear sometimes. So just moving your proximity toward other adults, sometimes that will stop it from happening in the moment. And don't fight. Don't fight unless you're having to protect yourself from immediate danger. Because if interact in a physical way with them, and you punch them or whatever, and there wasn't really, anything but words from their side, you unfortunately will get in trouble too. And then they have, and I know you've probably heard this before, because we all have, they'll say, well, they were doing it too. And so I don't want you to fight unless you need to protect yourself, because you're in some sort of immediate danger. So basically, in the moment, we're not talking about being cowering and that kind of thing. Sometimes I think it takes more courage to take a breath, to stay calm, and to walk away. And then, if you can, walk toward adults. I want you to use strong words like stop. I don't like that. Leave me alone. No. Because then again, you're building up when you do report something, if you need to, that you can say, I said these words. I said stop. I said I don't like that. I told them to please leave me alone, and I said no, and they continued. That's really important, especially if you have to make a report, that you can say, I was firm in what I said. It's also empowering for you to be able to say stop. They may or may not stop, but at least you had, again, that moment where you spoke, where you had a voice in the situation. And then I want to just reaffirm the power of having a trusted adults in your life who can help. It could be anybody, it could be parents, teachers, a school counselor. Maybe you have a therapist, a coach. My high school person was my baseball coach. Another person was actually a youth leader I had. So I had several different people that were outside of my immediate family. Maybe it's a grandparent, an aunt and uncle, a principal. It might be the woman that works or the man that works in the cafeteria. Yes, even the last one, it could be a principal. I know sometimes we think of a principal as the one that's doing the discipline and all, but I know so many principals that care so much about kids. So I want you right now, for the next like 5 seconds while I pause, to think about at least two trusted adults you could talk to. One could be a parent or your guardian or whoever takes care of you, the people you live with. It might not be. But it can also be another adult, a trusted adult that you can talk to. Those are the people that you run to, that you go to when you need added help, because you know they're not going to make fun of you. You know they're not going to dismiss your concerns. And I want you to remember that talking to an adult is not tattling or snitching. Gosh, I hate that word snitching. When somebody tattles or snitches, and some of you that are maybe younger listening to this, you know what I'm talking about here. That's just somebody they tell on somebody just to get people in trouble. But when you report, you're reporting to keep someone safe. And that person might be yourself, or it might be another person. So, talking to an adult and reporting incidents, especially when it has to do with bullying, is not tattling, and it is certainly not snitching. You know what? You might need to practice what to say. And this might sound funny. You might think, but think about if you play a sport or an instrument, or maybe you sing or you do art, whatever it is that you do, or video games even. You don't get good just overnight. You have to practice. And I know some of you sometimes have trouble putting things into words. I know in my role as a counselor, one of the big parts of my job is to help young people and adults actually find the words to describe what's happening to them or with them, or the words they need to address an issue or to name something. And there's real power in having the words to say or the words to describe what is happening. So examples are I need help. They keep making fun of me. It's happening over and over. I'm worried they're going to do it again. I don't feel safe. That's a big one. It happened online. Sometimes it's hard to pinpoint. I don't even know this person maybe, but it's happening online. So practice some of the things you want to say or might need to say to an adult or to a trusted friend that's going to help you get help. And if it's online, do not argue online. I mean, I cannot say that enough. Do not engage. Do not engage online. I've seen so many times too, if you don't engage, they'll move on somewhere else because they're not getting the response they want. Take screenshots. This is so important, especially if this escalates into a formal report or even, legal things that you might have to do. But take a screenshot, block the person. Gosh, it's a powerful tool. Just block them. Um, and then they're out of your life. And if they come up with another account, you block them again. And that's when you can report this person is creating false accounts in order to harass me. And there are mechanisms even in social media that if somebody's doing that, they can actually be permanently banned from a site. Tell an adult, you've got to tell an adult, no matter how embarrassed you might feel, because again, it is not about you. You have done nothing wrong. But I know that that feeling of embarrassment or shame is there sometimes. So remember those adults that you can talk to that you will feel they won't shame you, they'll support you, and that they'll help you. And never meet somebody from the internet alone. I would say don't meet somebody in person unless you know them some other way. But certainly don't go meet somebody by yourself. There are all kinds of stories about people that specifically befriend people to bully them, to harass them, to torment them, or even worse. And so, do not meet somebody from the internet alone. Good friends versus bullies. Let's just do this really quick. A good friend respects you. Bullies hurt you. Good friends listen to you. Bullies laugh at you. Good friends include you. Bullies intentionally leave you out. Good friends help you. Bullies scare you. And good friends, this one's so important. They accept differences. I love friend groups. My friend group is so diverse. You would be like, how did y'all become friends? You don't even agree with half the things in the world, and that's what's so great about it. But we're all different. We all have our little things here and there. I love music and I love baseball and that kind of things. I have other friends that don't like those things at all. Um, but good friends accept differences. Bullies make fun of differences. Somebody is not your friend if they are making fun of your personality and the differences you might have. That's not friendship. It's just not. Again, there's a difference between a couple of buddies that kind of, they josh with each other and tease each other a little bit. But there's that balance of power, and it's not meant with harm, and neither person feels offended. But somebody that intentionally is making fun of differences that you feel like you have, or they point out, those are not friends. Those are bullies. And I want you to remember that if you see somebody being bullied, it's important that you also help. And I don't want you to intervene in the moment. Unless it's a low risk kind of thing, and you're just stepping in to say, "Come hang out with me. Don't listen to these people." But you're not getting in the middle of something that's might get physical. But you tell an adult, and sometimes it's just sitting with a person. I can't tell you how many of you I know that I've talked to and over the years who just getting that one friend that comes and sits with them at lunch changes their whole life. And so I want you to think about some of those kids in your own class, maybe that sit by themselves at lunch. Um, Maybe you're just going to go sit with somebody because you saw something happen and you want to make sure they know you weren't a part of it, and that you don't agree with it. Include them in something. Invite them to your birthday party. Invite them over to your house, whatever. Yeah, so important here. It seems so simple, but it's not. Just ask them if they're okay. Sometimes people are having a bad day or something's happening and maybe in public they say, "Oh, I'm fine." But if you ask them one on one, "Are you okay?" they'll say they're not. So just ask somebody and certainly do not join in. Sometimes one kind person changes everything. Just one kind person. Coping after bullying. So obviously, we're going to take care of it in ways we need to take care of it. Maybe we tell an adult, we stop hanging out with certain people, we do all those things, but there are things we can do for ourselves too. And after talking with somebody, maybe there are some healthy but coping things. Anybody that's talked to a counselor knows a lot of these are for any situation, but they certainly help with this too. Exercising really helps get your mind off of things. Drawing, music, video games in moderation, whether maybe prayer or meditation or whatever practice you have that kind of helps you clear your mind. Journaling, so helpful, putting those words down. Pets. Man, I have my little dog sitting right here with me today, and I can't imagine her not being at the house with me. When I have a bad day, she doesn't care if what I did that day. So pets can be so comforting, such a good way to just decompress. And then deep breathing. I know we sometimes make fun of it, like take a breath, but honestly, just deep breathing, clear our minds, and then maybe doing some journaling or drawing or whatever it is that helps you um, after you have talked to somebody. Or maybe you do that and then you talk to somebody. So I don't want to forget the first one, talking to somebody, but these are just some ideas that you could do. So I want you to think about, what are your coping mechanisms? What are your coping skills? And specifically, what could you do if there was some bullying? It's been taken care of, but you still have some of those lingering things going on, those lingering feelings. Avoid keeping things secret, hurting yourself, or hurting others. Again, sometimes when we feel shame, we either hurt ourselves or we hurt others. We attack ourselves, or with thoughts, or we attack others with our words, or we lash out, or we just withdraw. Gosh, you can't keep things secret forever. Um, when we know that things that are hidden, that are kept in secret, those are the things that grow. When we bring secrets to light and we bring things to light, that's where they can be dealt with and we can move on. So, in closing, I just want you to finish these sentences. If somebody bullies me, I want you to fill that in. I can ask. I want you to think of those one or two people you could ask for help. And I also want you to add a person your own age in there too, or a couple of people your own age. One thing that makes me feel strong is, what is an asset that you have that makes you feel strong? You might find out when you look at some of your assets, sometimes all you can think about is the things that feel wrong or feel, oh gosh, uncomfortable for yourself. But there are things that make you strong. Maybe it's just the really cool way you figure things out, or you're great at, like I said, drawing or music, or maybe you have a way with words, or you're really good at a sport, or maybe you're just a really great friend, or maybe you have that thing in you that you feel empathy for other people. So, what is it, one thing that makes you feel strong? And then finally, who is one person who cares about you? I know I don't know you, but I want to add myself to that to tell you that after all this, I care about you because I care about all young people and I want you all to thrive. And I want you to remember these things. You deserve respect. Being different is okay. Asking for help is brave. It is not weak. That is a lie. Asking for help is brave. People who bully do not decide your worth. In fact, no one decides your worth but you. I know we feel our worth sometimes by other people, but never let a person who bullies you decide what you are worth. And then finally, just know you are not alone. You are not alone. That's why I say, if you ask one person for help, ask another person if you don't get what you need. Someone cares. And sometimes people care and they just don't know what to do. But I just want you to hear that you are not alone. So I'm going to stop my share here. And just in closing remarks, let you know that each one of you have value. Each one of you deserve that respect I just talked about. And no one is to blame when someone else is bullying them. So reach out for help if you need to. A trusted adult, a trusted person your own age, and then reach out to somebody who can actually support you and care for you. I hope you all have a fantastic school year this year and just take care.